Well, thanks for joining me today on Weather and Ag in Focus. Glad to have you along. I would tell you I'm live from the Coral Laundromat studio today, but no, I'm actually live from my pickup in Bismarck. I am headed to the South Dakota Cattlemen's Association's annual convention that will be held in Deadwood, South Dakota. So I am partway into my drive out to Deadwood. And for those who should have given me money to gamble away for you at the tables, sorry, you can still Venmo me, I guess, but I guarantee you nothing. My gambling luck isn't awesome. So I think I'm really selling that for you. But your luck will be way better if you take your things to the Coral Laundromat over on Veterans Boulevard, especially now that we have had winter snowfall. And it's time to take those things that you've been putting off, get them in there, get them clean and washed up. It's nice and cozy there while it's not necessarily outside. So you've got a chance to sit by their fireplace, have a play area for the kids, and large tables to fold all of your good things over there at Coral Laundromat on Veterans Boulevard. Our weather today was brought to us by Progressive Ag, the risk management specialists. And that weather forecast, well, it's going to be chilly. Currently, where I sit, it's about 6 degrees. So what a heat wave as I move westward. And I'll be able to give great updates and road reports as travel continues for the day. A lot of our college kids are returning after Thanksgiving break. Some of them include our Cass County Farm Bureau Assistant Ag Directors. We had one of them join us last week. That was Kylie. Kylie joined us from Kindred, and we will have another student joining us next week as well. And we'll wind out the year for Cass County Farm Bureau's Assistant Ag Director program and fire back up in January with more. If you have a student, a sophomore in high school to a sophomore in college, who would like to spend a day doing an internship with us, be on air, ask questions, interview guests, and so much more, we'd love to have you. You can drop me an email, ag@flagfamily.com. That particular email address is powered by Superior Grain Equipment. We will, in fact, have Josh Rouser with Superior Bins joining us a little bit later today. We're going to talk about the fact that they are more than just grain storage. They can also be your solution center for drying and handling solutions. You can learn more at superiorbins.com. Our live stream, for those of you who are watching me in what looks like Santa's sleigh, yes, I did make a shopping stop before the show today. And I will tell you, after a trip through a local craft store, I've got more glitter on me than, well, basically than a stripper at a matinee because wow for glitter on stuff in there for Christmas. And now it's all over me. But nonetheless, that live stream, if you want to follow along and see that my pickup looks like Santa's sleigh and I twinkle now, you can do that on Acres TV, Facebook, and YouTube. Those live streams are brought to us by Lighthouse Commodities. And as always, I will take your phone calls as well as your road reports and so much more on the JLA Insurance phone line. That number is 701 293 9000. Okay, all the housekeeping things are out of the way. Well, as always, there's lots to share because we've got a tremendous amount going on. Great ways for you to reach out and contact us throughout the show anytime that you would like. Now, while I'm on my way to one event this week, next week will be the Prairie Grains Conference. This will be held December 10th and 11th. Now, primarily on the 11th is when the trade show and the breakout sessions happen. That'll be at the Alaris Center in Grand Forks. You can register to get a meal ticket or just plan to grab lunch on your way through the show at some point or around the show. But this is a joint program of the Minnesota Association of Wheat Growers, North Dakota Grain Growers Association, and the Minnesota Soybean Research and Promotion Council. This year, some of the featured speakers include Mike Spire. He's the U.S. Wheat Associates president. Also, you would have folks from Commodity Advisors coming in to visit, and an audience favorite, Daryl Richardson. He is the director of the North Dakota Ag Weather Network, known as NDON. When people ask what's NDON, why would Daryl be talking about it? There's a couple of reasons. One, NDON as a meso network is expanding so that we're not just North Dakota, but we have some sites in Minnesota. And they are weather stations all across the state. They report back video feeds so we can see changing weather conditions, similar to what North Dakota DOT will show on major highways. You will, but they cover more smaller areas, meaning that they cover a lot more ground, so to speak, on their camera system. If we need to go back for historical documentation of temperatures, air temperature, ground temperature, wind speed, precipitation, all those things, we can get that information from NDOT. And we find that particularly critical in agriculture as we want to make sure we know the past and as well as looking forward in the future to what trends and so forth we'll find. And Daryl is state climatologist. Has a wealth of information. We talk about what's happened in the history of weather across the state. And so if you are a Daryl Richardson fan, he's a great guy to sit and listen to his breakout session. Again, that'll be next Thursday at the Alaris during the Prairie Grains Conference. Some of the other things that are currently happening, well, there has been an executive order from the Trump administration now exempting several agricultural products from tariffs. This includes fruits, tropical fruits and juices, coffees and teas, cocoa and spices. So for those of you firing up the kitchen to get ready for Christmas baking, this will be helpful to you. Although remember, tariffs aren't going to be enacted. Those tariff repercussions don't happen within just days. It'll take a little bit longer to see some of the effect. Also, the tariff reduction on bananas, oranges, tomatoes, and additional fertilizers. Now, there's a list of about 80 pages of items that are now included in this documentation. I've read through a bunch of them. I looked for things that stood out that were important to agriculture. I think what's nice to know here is that we had certain food products not grown in the United States. It was under tariff. That's changed, so that keeps our food diversity open, which is a great place to be. And then some of our fertilizers, which initially we also didn't like, potash out of Canada didn't have a tariff on it. And so we're going to continue to see that with some of these other items as well, that we won't see tariffs being part of the problem there. So certainly the Trump administration says that the tariff strategy is working. And the White House went on to, they've defended those reciprocal tariffs. So far, I think the jury's out. We don't know exactly where that has led to yet. Some are in favor, some maybe not. But for those of you who want to buy coffee and you've been seeing your Folgers priced at about $18 a can versus its normal 11 or 12, well, this may be a change for you. Also, when it comes to waters of the U.S., most of us know it as WOTUS, farmers and ranchers are looking to face fewer regulatory hurdles for a change, as the EPA and the Corps of Engineers have released new proposals to redefine waters of the U.S. Now, this proposed rule is designed to bring a long requested clarity to what features fall under federal jurisdiction. So potentially this could reduce permitting uncertainty for ag, for landowners, and for rural businesses. Now, the definition of WOTUS determines when producers must secure their permits for projects, and it can include surface water quality, such as if you're building terraces, installing drainage, or expanding livestock operations. But according to the EPA, these new proposals aim to align fully with the Supreme Court's recent Sackett decision and prevent farmers from needing lawyers and consultants to simply determine whether a water feature on their land might possibly be federally regulated. Oops, guess we'll take that phone call when we come back from commercial, and we'll be able to do that just in a few minutes. So hang tight. We'll be back with Gregg Hanson, Agri-Commodities. We will make sure to get on track with what's happening with our markets. Welcome to a very cool and crisp Monday here on Weather and Ag in Focus. No matter where you are, it might be chilly. I'm getting some concerns from those of you in Missouri, Illinois, Iowa, and you want me to bring the weather back up here. Hey, sorry, left the gate open. Can't get it back, guys. It's just like cattle. Well, Gregg Hanson is joining us for Market Uncovered. We did not get a chance to talk on Friday. It was Black Friday, and folks were a little bit busy. So, Greg, first question I have is, based on what was going on last week, the week of Thanksgiving, any big changes in the marketplace? Anything that you saw that really stood out?
We're just kind of waiting on China to show up, and it was a choppy market, some back and forth, but really we're just waiting for the Chinese to come in and buy the rest of what they've said they're going to buy. It's December 1, so we got 62 days to hit the end of the January deadline of buying 12 million tons. Through last Wednesday, it was roughly 2.2, so we're about just over 1/6 of the way. We still got a lot of beans to get bought. What I have noticed is when you look at a chart on the Jan futures, um, whenever we're about 15, 20, 10, 20 cents above where we've seen them come in. When they went in and bought here, 3 weeks ago, we're about 15, 20 cents above that. When they bought early, was it early last week? We're about 15, 20 cents above. So it seems like there's a price where we start to see them buy. And so maybe we're going to get a little more of this choppy action, but it feels like when I look at where the futures market's at, maybe we need to dip 10, 15 cents from here. Then hopefully we'll see them step in. We did not see any sales announced this morning. We
Mm-hmm.
know there's a lot more left to buy. So that's kind of what we're looking for is do we just need to set back a little bit, get a little more competitive? The one news item that popped up today, though, is they found in some Brazilian bean cargoes, they found some wheat. And it sounds like maybe
Yep.
they're going to limit some of the purchases on who they're going to buy grain from in Brazil. Will that push more business to us quicker? Time will tell. I still think a lot of it's a price function, though, and we're just a little on the higher side.
I saw the same story this morning, and that was one of the questions I had to ask you about was, do we think that if there was a little bit of wheat that was mixed into that soybean cargoes that were going to China, will they reject those? Will it really change their buying, or are they very price focused right now where that type of thing sort of gets overlooked? Is there any indication either way on that, Greg?
Well, what I heard is they were rejected. So, I
Okay.
mean, they're not going to take them back. Maybe they'll buy them at a discount, but they basically said they do not meet our specs. Um,
Hmm.
could it be a positive for us? I mean, if they decide that if they want to play hardball, they could limit what they buy from this company going forward. Maybe that means, well, if they can't get beans here, if we can be competitive enough, can we replace those boats with U.S.? So we don't have any of those answers today. I think a lot of it is price sensitive. And like I say, when I look at the last two times they stepped in, we're 10, 15 cents above that. I think it's more of a price thing, but the fact they rejected them means they've got to replace those boats with something. Hopefully, it's U.S. beans.
Now, a few more questions for you. One of them is we were just talking about wheat. Well, what are your thoughts when it comes to wheat? What I read is that wheat's pretty weak right now. Personally speaking, I love to raise wheat and I wish we could sell more of it and have it priced in a great way. But, you know, any indicators on a strengthening wheat market globally, or is it just going to continue to kind of flounder right along?
The Argentine numbers were out here today, and they're pretty much in line with what the government was thinking here this last month. So, I mean, wheat's just been a dog. It's just been struggling, especially Minneapolis
Hmm.
versus the others. Here domestically, we've had a pretty good wheat crop here in the U.S. from the spring wheat side. We had a good winter wheat crop. There's wheat looking for homes, trying to find its way into the feed ration, which you tend to do that with that Chicago KC wheat when you have a lot of it.
Hmm.
Wheat's a wheat. It's grown around the world. There's a harvest, 10 out of 12 months out of the year. You need someone to have an issue, and right now we just seem to have a little bit too much of it.
Sure.
Now,
Surpluses are high.
money flow. Money flow is an area or a thing where maybe we could get a change. We had seen back in when the cattle peaked, we had seen cattle peak. The stock market had kind of peaked out, and gold had peaked, and things were kind of setting back. And we saw money flow into the grains. That's when we had the bean rally really got going. The corn's kind of followed along. I think today would take a change in money flow. If you could take money out of a market somewhere, it doesn't just go under a mattress. If people take their money off the table in a market, they're going to put it somewhere else. Wheat looks cheap to me, especially
Okay.
when you compare it to the other commodities. So that might be what we're hoping for, is if you could just get a change of money flow, maybe that could get things started, and then you could, if you get high enough, maybe run into some technical buying, kind of get this market a little excited, get someone to get in and want to buy it. But it just seems like nobody wants to own it today. We need to give them a reason.
Not today. So when you're working with farms, Greg, in your business, as you're trying to help them manage their risk. And how do you how do you do that with a customer? I mean, do you have a specific approach that you use? It is it every farm is different and you have to have an in-depth conversation with them to help them figure out what their risk is going to look like, how much they should be forward contracting? Just give us a little bit of a sense for if I'm a new customer and I want to come do business with Gregg Hanson, what's that going to look like for me?
So what we do is we're very hands-on, and it's kind of the second of the things you brought up. We believe every farm is unique. Everyone has a different crop rotation they have. Everyone has different storage availability. Everyone has access to different marketplaces. And so what we do is we make a plan that's going to be 100% unique to the individual farmer. Now, if you look at all of our plans, they're 80% the same. There's times when we're selling at the same time frames, or same prices, but maybe we're selling for different delivery times. Maybe in one place where the cash markets are good, we're selling cash, and other places we're only doing futures. So what we do is we make a plan that is 100% unique to the individual farmer. And to do that, we do need a lot of information. I mean, it's very hands-on, very in-depth, but we take into account the cost of interest at the bank, the cost of storage, especially if it's in town, cost of freight, if we're looking at two or three different places that we could potentially haul grain to. So we're looking at what are all of these potential out of pocket costs. And so the goal is to try to put as much money in your account when it's done. We want to have good sales. We want to lock in good basis levels, but we also want to manage that interest cost of the bank, manage the storage at the elevator, try to minimize those as best we can. And like I say, between all the above, hopefully put you in a better spot compared to the average farmer out here.
Greg, when is the next USDA report due to come out? And any estimation or guesses what you think it's going to contain? Reading headlines these days, a lot of folks are calling for USDA to trim back their 186 bushel record corn crop estimate. What do you think that report might look like, or what they might do when it comes to that record?
Well, I guess first things first, will we get the report that we're supposed to get? Um, the next scheduled report is, let me open up my calendar. It's supposed to be next Thursday. I have not heard that that's changing. So that is
Okay.
supposed to be, or next, excuse me, next Tuesday, Tuesday the 9th, a week from tomorrow. Normally, they skip December when it comes to production. They give us a
Okay.
November. They'll give us, yields in August, September, October, November. They skip December. We get the final numbers in January. I have not heard that that's going to be different. So that would tell me that we're not really going to get a yield update more than likely until the January report, which means then you're just adjusting demand around the world, maybe some South American production. So if that's what it's going to be probably pretty uneventful. The January report is when you'll get all your fireworks. And,
Okay.
there's a lot of discrepancy from the last report about what's the yield. Some states saying their yields are too high, some states saying their yields are too low. You can definitely talk to anyone in the Midwest and say, well, the government's wrong. Whether they are or not, it's up for debate. We don't agree with it. But when you look at the bottom line, it sure feels like that corn yield needs to come down. Will we see that? No, if you go back a year, we were talking a big yield, and they made a pretty hefty cut in the January number. That is, I would anticipate that to happen. But as
Okay.
far as this report, I don't know if we'll get a whole lot of we're not going to get a lot of yield data, so it's going to be hard to have that as a surprise.
Well, I am on my way to spend a couple of days with the South Dakota Cattlemen's Beef Association. Any questions you want me to ask them, Greg, so they can give you some insight into their crystal balls that I can share with you on Friday?
Really, what everyone wants to know is when are they going to open the border? I
Yep.
guess we're kind of nervous about what's the USDA's plan. The chatter was after the first of the year, months and months ago. Is that still the plan? Now, with all these cold temps, could they speed it up? My
Right.
question has always been if this fly that lays the screamer fly, if it's a tropical fly, is this cold weather pushing it further in deeper into southern Mexico? Could it be possible that even if we don't have all these sterile flies up to speed and released, could they open up the borders and say specifically, okay, we'll bring in cattle from Mexico, probably start over in the Arizona area, and just say, okay, it's got to be raised or have spent the last 30, 60 days in that first province south of the border. So
Hmm.
nothing has come up from, say, Central America, Southern Mexico, where the fly is active. Do it in an area where that fly is not around, and at least start to bring some numbers in. That's probably, I would assume, the last shoe that could drop out here as far as uh, price goes. Because it does feel to me like as we get into January, we're going to start to chew through the cattle that the packer owns, and there can be a little bit of a hole we got to fill. But that's really the
Right.
last big question: is have they heard anything out of the USDA? Could they open things up, earlier than anticipated?
I would venture a guess that's going to be a big topic of conversation. And you and I will have a chance to get back into our regular schedule on a Friday. We're talking with Gregg Hanson. We do a segment each Friday called Market Uncovered. Don't forget to join us for that. Greg, last thing, if folks want to give you a call, where can they do that?
You can give us a call at 507 338 6433. You can check us out on our Facebook page, Hanson Agri Commodities, or check us out on the website, hanson-ag.com.
Thanks for joining us today, Greg. As we work around holiday schedules, we'll be back with Greg on Friday. After the news, I'll return with the next guest for today. That's Josh Rouser with Superior Bins. They power our inbox here at Weather and Ag in Focus. Mine is ag@flagfamily.com. We'll be right back. you have a lot of year-end work that's being done through your email, on your internet systems at your office, which is part of your agribusiness or your farm. Don't let that go unprotected. Make sure to have a discussion with Chris Sherman at Tech Support Farm because you want to make sure that you are not being watched, that your information is not being swiped, and that you don't get spoofed or scammed. Those are all frightening words, and Chris can help make them a lot easier to work around so nothing bad happens to you or your hard-earned dollars. Check him out at techsupportfarm.com. If you have questions while we're visiting with our guests today, you can reach me on the JLA Insurance phone line, 701-293-9000. And my inbox is powered by Superior Grain Equipment. That is ag@flagfamily.com. And the reason that my inbox is powered by Superior Grain Equipment is in the studio today. We have with us Josh Rouser. Josh, I'm sorry I'm not there with you as I'm out in Bismarck, but I appreciate you coming in to spend a little time answering questions.
Yeah, my pleasure.
All right, tell us about Superior Bins, if you would, please. What's going on in your business?
We're busy. It coming off of another extraordinary year for us. You know, some of it was storm fueled, and other parts are just markets were good for us. So, you know, basically transitioned from one full blown year to what looks to be another extremely busy year, and we're thankful.
When I first started in my career back in the mid 90s, I remember Superior Bins, but now that business has expanded and it's not just bins, it's entire systems. Talk a little bit about what you do for on-farm storage, and also are you doing that for some of our local agribusinesses and elevators as well?
Yeah, it's come a long ways, right? You're right. It started even back in the 70s. It was just a bin here, bin there, and it's evolved into full-scale projects. You know, elevators. I mean, even farms are building what would rival a lot of the small elevators nowadays, and you know that's becoming more and more relevant as we go along. As the local farms are trying to be able to prepare and handle mass bushels to be able to capitalize on markets, haul when it's convenient, etc. And you know, it's really grown from just a little ma and pa bin building company to what we are today.
So I grew up on a farm that would have had a Superior Bin, and it was in comparison to the bins you're building today, it was pretty much a mini bin, right? This is
Yep.
this is like the
Yep.
the feed size bin. So when you talk about the size of bins that you're building, I'm just going to blow the minds of the audience. Talk about probably your top three bin sizes. What is that diameter that
Yep.
people that would be surprised at? Just give us some of the specs, please.
So traditionally 48s and 42-foot diameters are extremely popular. There was a point here this year where 60-foot diameters were the number one seller out of anything we had going. You know, and that kind of comes and goes as the season goes on with purchases, but it's ever growing. You know, 10 years ago, the 36 was an average bin, and the 48-footer was just huge, and that 48 is becoming to be a very common size for just about all producers.
All right. Bushels. How many bushels are we holding in some of the, if you talk about a 48 or a 60?
A 48's an average of about 60,000 bushels. A 60-footer is 100,000 plus. You know, 150, 170, 180. It's been very common, especially in corn country.
And with that corn country has come dryers. So when you're doing these setups, are you installing dryers on 80, 90% of the bin sites that you're putting together, or kind of what does that look like?
Yeah, it's not to that percentage yet. There's still a lot of guys that are in the financial denial of a grain dryer. You know, they know they need it, they know they want it, but it's biting it off and paying for the dryer and the full project that comes with it. You know, and every year as corn keeps creeping west and keeps creeping north, so do the dryers. You know, but the quotas are still really underserved on the dryer market compared to, you know, farther east in the Midwest. But, you know, I guess if you wanted to say a percentage, I would say I'd be surprised if a quarter of the farms have a dryer on them right now, or at least a dryer that's adequate.
Right. And that's usually the bottleneck, right? Is your dryer big enough for what you're trying to move through there? You know, your holding bins are okay, but what's that
Uh,
size of that dryer? What's the age of that
Always,
dryer?
always, it's either wet storage or dryer capacity, and it's one or the other. That's always the holdup for guys right now. It's just they physically can take more off in the field in 4 to 5 hours in than what they can dry in a 24-hour period.
When you look at your dryers, are you not only installing them, but do you do service and warranty work on the dryers?
Yeah, I mean that's the beauty of what we have to offer is we're also the manufacturer. So I mean
Okay.
we're building these things from ground up. So often some of the service features are more so it just was put together incorrectly or wired incorrectly, etc. And we're usually able to combat that ahead of time as we're installing it or manufacturing it. But we do service and handle all the dryers that we do sell, which is a luxury for us, and it's also for the customer. It's hard to
Well,
find a
it
better
is
trained
start to finish.
well, and it's hard to find a better trained dryer tech than the ones that are actually building the dryers as well.
So when it comes to the work you've been doing, you said you've had a busy year. Some of that was certainly storm induced. Do you feel like you've kind of caught up on what was damaged through the derecho and the tornadoes this summer? Or is that waiting list pretty long to try to
No,
rectify
it
the damage?
back when the storms were hitting, it was kind of a what are we ever gonna do type of moment,
Hmm.
for
Hmm.
several days, and just trying to drink out of the fire hydrant and figure out how to take care of everybody. And we made a pretty serious commitment to ourselves and to our customers that any of the work that we took on, we would attempt to have buttoned up by the end of the year, or at least an action plan. And other than a couple of roof replacements here and there, every project we sold is done. Harvest was on time for the individuals, and we were quite proud of that. We probably could have taken on more, but
Hmm.
then it would have ended with some disappointment for the customers of things not being done. So
If
we're
you, oh, go ahead,
no,
finish that comment.
we're looking forward to starting 2026 with a clean slate again, which is advantageous for us.
That's a perfect segue into what I wanted to ask you, because if someone is currently sitting down at the end of the year and thinking about what was my profit and loss, what do I need to do better? Do I need more storage? Do I need a bigger dryer, etc.? Is there sort of a rule of thumb about start to finish when you start working with them to design their project until completion, or is that pretty all over the board?
It's all over the board. In an example, we did some projects that were in the hard hit areas by the storms that, it would often take some businesses years to complete. And we completed, start to finish projects in 4 months. Um, can that be rare? Absolutely. But, if guys are looking now and even through the next, few winter months, there's all the time in the world to get the project done for next season and have it functional.
Hmm.
It often comes down to wiring and gas and all those other things that we can't control. We're just one step in the whole project.
I live in Hunter, so I think you can understand what projects have been like in my neighborhood
Yeah,
this last few months.
it was bad.
Um, as we got into 2025 and even before the derecho, all sorts of questions and concern about steel tariffs. What have you seen throughout this season? Has it been scary? Have a lot of projects changed because of them?
You know, for us, it really hasn't. We're American made, American bought, and that does set us apart over quite a bit of the competition. There's no foreign steel coming into this, so
Hmm.
we weren't subject to tariffs, if you will, other than on a few handling pieces of equipment here and there. But it definitely shook the steel markets a bit because it made the other guys that were dependent on foreign materials start having to look at other markets. So it definitely made the steel market volatile. But for
Hmm.
us, we were pretty fortunate on, again, other than some sourced products from Canada, there really was no tariffs that we had to worry about.
Well, last two questions for you, Josh. First of all, thank you for holding down the studio for me today while my co-host is out and I'm in
It's
Bismarck.
tough.
Thank you. You're doing a fabulous job. Um, Also, do you want to put a plug in for labor? Are you looking for folks for your crews to be working through the winter or starting next year?
Yeah, always. We're pretty fortunate and happy to be winding down now and letting the guys go home and ice fish and do whatever they wish to do for a month or two if they want. And we'll definitely be hitting it hard in the spring. But one of the keys to being able to do what we do is good people and adequate staff and quality employees that really kind of share the same goal as everyone in house already. So we're always looking for guys. If there's someone out there that thinks they need a look at a different opportunity, all they got to do is give us a call and we can see what we got for them.
Josh, thank you so much for also sponsoring my inbox where I do get messages from listeners all the time and I can share those back with you and with those others they're directed to. But for folks who are curious, where can they learn more about everything that happens at Superior? What's your contact information for them?
Yeah, so website is always is superiorbenz.com. That gives you a pretty dang good idea of what we got going on. And honestly, if you don't want to go on the web and you just want to call us. Me or one of the other sales guys would be happy to chat with you and tell you what's cooking and what we can maybe do to help them out, and whether it's storage or drying or even just the little things, we'd be more than happy to talk with them and try to figure out a plan for 2026.
Hey, Josh, thanks for coming in today. Much appreciated. Folks, we're going to take just a moment, and when we come back, we'll get one last look at the weather that I'll share with you and probably a couple of headlines. We'll be right back. Enjoy the sunshine, even if it's a bit chilly out. Arctic air is building in our north, and we expect to see some cold temperatures over the next couple of weeks. Fairly potent fragments of Arctic air, as they might be called. And this is not necessarily unheard of to have temperatures like this, but we normally don't experience them till January or February. So hold on, it'll get better, but we may have a bit of cold air until Christmas. And for all of you who are excited about the ice making for ice fishing, well, here's your chance to enjoy it even more. Now, as we rapidly approach the end of the year, a lot of farmers are getting ready to go to their bankers. Whether you're a farmer, an agribusiness, any small business needs to do that. Have that discussion about your operation and what are some of the things that you should be taking with you when you have that discussion with your banker, especially if you're in the process of switching banks or loan officers. This may sound pretty basic, but make sure you are taking your profit and loss statement, but not just this year. Have the last 3 years. Folks want us to be able to look at trends to identify areas of uh, forward thinking or concern or any of the above. And it's a great idea to be able to do that. Especially make sure that all of your areas of income are listed. So if you have picking up for goodness sakes, if you have picked up that extra business of custom tiling or custom planting, etc., make sure that that income source is being noted as well. So a fair picture can be made. Have some projections and talk those through with your banker. When you bring your balance sheet in, include all livestock numbers, your acres owned and leased, and actually a complete equipment list with updated values. I can hear farmers giggling to themselves now, but I don't want my banker to know everything. Well, currently, Midwest bankers are estimating that only 52% of farms are going to be profitable in 2025. More than 25% of farm income is being correlated to government payments. So it's best to be honest and fair with what's going on with your bank, particularly if you are looking at making some transitions, bringing in a partner, a young farmer, and you should make sure that you're giving the best picture for that next person to be a part of what's going on. And bring your lender to the farm. There's nothing wrong with calling up your banker and having them see your operation and meet the people who are on it. I think that really helps build that relationship between you and the bank, and it makes it a lot easier when you need to visit with each other down the road when it comes to operational changes, right? We just talked to Josh Rouser with Superior Bins. If you're looking at upgrading a dryer, adding a bin system, it may be a good idea to have your banker come out and see how things really look so they have a great feel for it. And those balance sheets, again, are really going to be able to show you where you have your strongest assets and what items are working out best for you. So when you're planning time with your loan officer, they probably need about a month of lead time before funds can be committed to your operating line of credit, operating loan or your line of credit. The days of, I don't want to have to say my dad did this, but buying a piece of equipment and then calling the banker and saying, I need you to cover this. Don't think they work like that these days. So it would be best to have those discussions early and often with your banker so everybody's on the same page. Nobody likes to be surprised, particularly the person who's helping handle your finances most closely. Looking forward to spending time with you as I report this week from the South Dakota Cattlemen's Association's annual meeting down in Deadwood. When you have questions, you can email them to me at my Superior Grain Bin inbox, which is ag@flagfamily.com. Tomorrow, we're going to be joined by John Haug. He's with Financial Wealth Solutions. John's going to make mention of a seminar he's going to be hosting out in Watford City later this week. And then also Kyle Courtney from Oaks is going to join us. He's got a new idea for farms that he wants to share with his fellow farmers, and I'm excited to visit with him about it. If you have questions, let me know. Drive safe out there, and we'll see you tomorrow. The Jay Thomas Show is next.